Archbishop Winsky, bishops, our priests, religious, the Council of Catholic Women, Knights of Columbus members, our fellow legislators that I have the privilege of being with today, all of you on a pilgrimage of faith. I want you to know how honored I feel to be in your presence today and to be visiting with you today and to have a chance to share some thoughts with you today. But I would like to mention, as Michael already did, I am from the Diocese of Palm Beach. Our shepherd, our leader, Bishop Barbarito, is recovering from surgery, and he's doing so well. And I just ask, and I'm certain with your awareness of that you're holding him in your prayers. We are so fortunate for his leadership. The message today is to thank you for being here, for participating in this process. For I believe by your baptismal promise, you are called to be here. You are called to participate in this process. As a man of faith among you, and as an elected official, which is secondary to faith, I have weighed in over what is called a brief political career on matters of life, on matters of dignity, on matters of school choice, on many matters of principle. Now, on many occasions, I have been criticized. For those of you from Palm Beach County who read the Palm Beach Post, you're very familiar with those criticisms. They frequently have written, "It is not my place," or "I have gone too far." My suggestion to you today is that perhaps we have not gone far enough. For faith, of which I share with you today, is not merely the basis of my personal convictions, but it is also the basis of our very system of government. Now, people have debated President George Washington's religious beliefs, but what they are clear is what he has said. And I'm going to quote to you from 1796, his farewell address to the country. "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars, these firmest props of the duties of man and citizen." I go on to his quote, "Let it be simply asked, where is security for prosperity, for reputation, for life, if the sense of religious obligation deserts the oath?" Pretty clear in my book. It's evident from the discourse of the founders of this country and from the very documents that established this country that this design is one that depends on religion and not the dismissal of religion. Those in the political process should not have to apologize for their faith, hide from their faith, or disguise their faith. They should be encouraged to embrace it and to use it as it is an integral part of their humanity, and it is an integral part of our system of laws. For our country was founded on the principle of natural law. That is, that the certain rights are inherent to us by the virtue that we are human beings. Those rights given to us by our Creator, and we willingly loan certain powers as human beings to our government. Through the consent of the governed, the government is granted the ability to govern. But inherent in the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution are the notions that we, the people, have divine rights, and our government is born from, not contra to, those divine rights. The Declaration of Independence doesn't just allude to the fact that our system of government is rooted in the Almighty. It explicitly and unequivocally states it. That document, so sacred to the founding of our country, clearly reveals the basis of natural law, as, so I shall quote from that document, holds these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That is to say, that the governed have the ability to grant these powers to their government because the rights have first been gifted to them from our Creator. The signers of the Declaration of Independence appealed to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of their intentions and, in the words that they wrote, relied on the protection of divine providence. The Declaration also goes on to say, in explanation to the Crown, that our American ancestors reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration to settle here, to come to this place, because those brave souls came here in research of religious liberty. We owe to them, therefore, to the founders of this country, and to ourselves, and to the future generations, and most importantly, to the Creator that authored these rights, to fight for the liberties that are inherent in our glorious humanity. So to those who take issue with my beliefs as they relate to my job as an elected representative of the people, I say to you, your quarrel is not with me. Your quarrel is with the ideals and the very documents that established this country. And it is with respect to these ideals that I express my sincerest gratitude that you are here today to participate, that you are in this gathering, that you'll stand proudly for your beliefs, because these beliefs created this very system. The freedoms we seek to protect through this process are the blessings of our Creator, and it is our duty as Catholics to fight for them. As encouraged by Proverbs, which says, "The heart of the intelligent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge." You come here possibly to grasp some intelligence of this process, but I tell you, far greater is that your presence here allows us to find knowledge in your experiences. And though we have been warned not to engage in foolish and ignorant debates, Titus, and not to stoop to rhetoric, 1 Timothy, real knowledge of this process and real debate about the issues are imperative. And that is why it disappoints me, and I know many of you, when people around this country will divert debate into sinister name-calling and to hate-mongering. In these battles, this is where your voice is so sorely needed. For example, I, for one, have been quite outspoken in support of the Green family. That family, husband and wife, that in their garage started a little craft store called Hobby Lobby, that now employs 14,000 people who by choice have chosen to work for Hobby Lobby. It's closed on Sundays, they say it on the door, so that our associates can worship. They close earlier each evening ahead of their competition so their associates can be with their families. Well, they chose not to encourage their employees to engage in practices that they found immoral, and for that, their federal government chose to override that wisdom in all of our traditions and took them to court. And after years of punishing threats and costs to drive them out of business, the Supreme Court finally chose to uphold the rich history of religious freedom upon which this country is based. But the overreach has also challenged Little Sisters of the Poor. In this case, a not-for-profit order of sisters committed to charity had the nerve to challenge the Affordable Care Act of their government, that they would not accept the contraceptive mandate, arguing that religious institutions should not be required to offer insurance for medical treatments or procedures that would violate their basic notions of respect for human life. And they further argue that in America we should not have to fill out exemption forms for permission to live our religious lives and our moral truths without being fined. It said they had a partial victory. That's not enough. Last year, this administration of our country announced that it would continue to pursue the case against them, continuing to violate their natural inherent right to live their faith. In all of this debate, I was struck by this notion that under this president, this administration would come out in the middle of this case and brag that it had reached an accommodation. For familiar religious groups, when it is clear that from our founding documents, religion is not to be accommodated. Religion is part and parcel of our humanity, and therefore our faith is not something to be tolerated. It is not something to be accommodated. It is something to be celebrated. It should not be treated like a handicap or something that government has to make exceptions for. It is a human truth and a natural right, and the day that we accept our government as the arbiter of what is acceptable and what is to be accommodated is the day we lose everything that those ahead of us fought for. And it's the day that puts us on a path toward the extreme religious intolerance that is now playing out around the world. For recently, the world was rocked by the news that the brutal Islamic terror group ISIS had methodically slaughtered 21 Egyptian Coptic Christians on a beach in Libya. It was an act of methodical, terrible savagery. These 21 Christians died for only one reason: their Christian faith. It was reported that the victims cried out in their last moments of life, "Help me, Jesus." As recently as yesterday, we hear the call from the Prime Minister of Israel, our brothers and sisters of peace, to help protect them from religious intolerance that is pervading the Middle East and spreading around the world. We have a duty. We have a duty to not only act in our interest, but to act in our faith. And to our fellow humans who come to their aid when they call for our help from those filled with hate, from a country whose stated purpose is to destroy those who fall outside the lines of their religious edicts. It is our duty as children of faith, as believers in justice, and as instruments of our Lord to come to the aid of those who seek peace as we do, and who simply seek to live their lives of faith. And I ask you, have we not seen this movie before? Are our memories this short? In his plea to the League of Nations in 1936, King Haile Selassie of Ethiopia begged for protection from the Axis powers that was raining death upon citizens and countries, saying, so I quote, "Apart from the kingdom of the Lord, there is not on this earth any nation that is superior to any other, Should it happen that a strong military government finds that it may with impunity to destroy the weak people, then the hour strikes for the weak people to appeal to this League of Nations to give its judgment in all of freedom. God in history will remember your judgment. And the League of Nations' judgment was to do nothing at all. And shortly, 5,000 Ethiopian soldiers were overrun and killed. 1,000 Ethiopian civilians slaughtered by a movement so perverse and ideal that everyone saw it, but no one did anything. We will be judged on this earth and in heaven by the decisions made here in this state capital and in our nation's capital. We are judged by our choice, by our actions, and by our inaction. We are judged as individuals on whether we choose to speak up when we see injustice or whether we choose to fight for what we know is right. We are called to transform this world, and though we are always to keep in mind our primary obedience to our Lord and our primary citizenship in His kingdom, we are called to be citizens of this earth, citizens of this country, and citizens of this state. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, calling for political responsibility from all Catholics, I quote, "As Catholics, we are led to raise questions for political life other than, are you better than you were 2 years ago? Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Our focus is not of party affiliation, ideology, economics, or even competence, and the capacity to perform duties, as important as all of these may be. Rather, we focus on what protects or threatens human life, human dignity. We are members of a community of faith with a long tradition of teaching action of the human life and dignity, marriage and family, justice and peace, care for creation and the common good. As Americans, we are also blessed with religious liberty, which safeguards our right to bring our principles and moral convictions into the public arena. These constitutional freedoms need to be both exercised and protected. As some may seek to disqualify or mute our voices or limit the freedoms of religious believers in religious institutions." End quote. You are here. Your government needs your voice. This process needs your presence. Your petition here will enlighten us. It will challenge us, and it will encourage us. We need your intellectual gifts, the gifts of your unique life experiences, and the gift of your prayers. I encourage your participation here to be full, without reservation. John Adams said, "It is religion alone which can establish the principles upon which freedom can securely stand." Let us not be afraid. So you see, you have chosen to come, maybe, to give your time and your knowledge, your prayers, to be part of this process. But I still say from the very beginning, you were called to be here. And I thank you for answering that call. Thank you.